Hey everybody, and welcome back to Lindsey's Little Library. So somehow May went by really fast yet really slow. So I'm here today to talk about my May wrap up where I somehow read 10 books. That's a little crazy, but I'll take it. It helped that I had 2 books that I was almost done with and finished those like on the 1st and 2nd of the month. So that definitely helped quite a bit, but I'll still take it. So the first book that I got done in the month of May was In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. This book, as well as the book All Adults Here, are both of the audiobooks that I read during the month, and I've got both of those from Libro FM, which is a new app that I highly recommend. It is very similar to Audible, so it's all audiobooks that you can download, but when you sign up for their monthly subscription, which is a very similar cost to Audible, if not a little bit cheaper, I guess proceeds go to support a local independent bookstore of your choice. I mean, it doesn't even have to be local, but a independent bookstore of your choice. So I really like that part of it. It acts very similar to Audible. I've been listening to them when I've been walking or running when I'm outside. Works exactly the same way. It's just I like that they support those independent bookstores. So I do have a referral link down in my description if you're interested in signing up. Again, highly recommend it. But I listened to In 5 Years. I gave it 4 stars. This follows our main character as you kind of learn she's a very type A type personality. She has things very strategically planned out in her life. She's a lawyer. She has goals within her career, within her relationship, when she wants to get engaged and get married and have kids. It's very planned out. And she happens to fall asleep one night and she wakes up and it is 5 years later. She's not with the same person that she was 5 years ago. She's not in the same place. She doesn't understand how she got there. She doesn't really know what's going on. She's very confused by the thing. She ends up falling back asleep and she's back kind of in present day. So she gets a glimpse at what's happening in 5 years and then we go from there. So she's trying to figure out, is this a dream? Is this kind of, it felt more than a dream to her, and what's going to happen. But it was a really great book. I really enjoyed listening to it and I highly suggest it. Since we're talking about audiobooks, I'll talk about the other one I listened to, which is All Adults Here by Emma Straub. This I gave 3 stars to. It follows our main character, Astrid, and she is a grown woman. Her husband passed away, whom she was very deeply devoted to and in love with, misses him all of the time, and so now she has her 3 children that she's kind of still kind of taking care of. So she's trying to figure out if the mistakes she's made in the past has really, how much they have influenced who her kids have become as grown adults and the choices that they've made. Her granddaughter ends up coming and living with her for a while, and so she thinks that by helping raise her over the summer and through the school year, maybe she can continue to make some lasting impressions on her. And it was just okay. It was a fine family drama. I just find myself that I'm wanting a little bit more from books like that. But again, it was fine. A 3-star in my book is not a bad book. It's just not super memorable. I did still enjoy it. It was fine. All right, so the next books I picked up, these are not in any order. They're just how they're stacked next to me. I do have to give myself a pat on the back because I borrowed 2 books from the library this month and I read both of them in the same month that I borrowed them. That doesn't happen all the time, but I did it. So this book, I was purely influenced by Reagan from Peru's Project and Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand to pick this up. This is not my normal jam, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it is The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. So this is actually pretty fun. So it follows our main character, Emma, and she's kind of down on her luck. This is a historical romance, so of course I don't really know what year, but back in time. She's down on her luck. She's kind of been kicked out of her house by her dad and is a seamstress and ends up meeting the Duke of Ashbury, who is trying to come to terms with some injuries that he sustained during the war. And he makes her a deal. Basically, he needs an heir for his throne. So he's like, hey, marry me, give me an heir, and you can just be a duchess. So it follows that, and there are times I was laughing hysterically at this. They are so snarky with each other, and it totally is, it gives me Beauty and the Beast vibes, 100%, because he thinks he's a beast. She does nothing but see the good in him. His entire staff is basically rooting for them to fall in love. There's a library. It's all Beauty and the Beast themes, 100%. So, but it was a really fun read, which is perfect because I needed a little break after I read this beast. So Sarah and I buddy read Emperor of Storms, which is the 5th book in the Throne of Glass series, I think, by Sarah J. Maas. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens in this book other than it is fantastic. Sarah does this amazing job in creating these, because this is like no place on earth, yet I felt like I could be there and I could picture this place and I could picture these journeys that they were going on, and her battle scenes are just on par. They are epic. They are fantastic. She knows how to pace a book. She knows when to build things up and when to kind of pull things back. She knows when to add in some lighthearted stuff because we've been dealing with some really heavy stuff for so long. She just is such a fantastic writer. I'm loving the Throne of Glass book, or the whole series, and I only have 2 books left, which is kind of sad. But this made me want to pick up the next book so bad, but I just didn't have time for it right now. But I need to get to the next one, which is Tower of Dawn. So the Throne of Glass series follows Selena Sardothian as she is competing to become the king's assassin, is really kind of where everything starts. And you go from there, and there's just, it's crazy where it goes, and I just love Sarah's books. But I'm really making it a goal for me to finish this series before I start her Crescent City series. So that's on the table. All right. Next book I picked up was Lock Every Door by Riley Sagar. Oh, he is quickly becoming one of my very, very favorite authors. And so I gave this 5 stars wholeheartedly. It was fantastic. This follows our main character, Jules, and she happens to reply to I guess, I don't know if it was like a Craigslist ad, basically looking for an apartment sitter. She's kind of thinking it's too good to be true because she shows up at the Bartholomew, which is like a very high class apartment building right on Central Park in New York City. And she's wondering, you know, how, she just doesn't understand how she's applying for this job. Well, she applies for it to be this apartment sitter. She gets paid thousands of dollars a month, and all she has to do is follow some really simple rules, which is like, don't bug the other guests because there's some celebrities who live here and they don't like to be bugged. You have to stay in the apartment every night and don't really ask questions. She doesn't think that's too hard to follow, and then weird things start happening. But it's amazing. I flew through this book in like 3 days. It was fabulous, fabulous. Twists I did not see coming. It was great. All right. Next one I picked up was Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain. This is actually a arc that I got from Bookish First a while ago because this came out in 2018. But I finally got to it. And another one I just could not put down. This is 5 stars wholeheartedly. And I've read Diane Chamberlain a couple of times, and so I was really taken aback or surprised by, it's just a little different for her typical writing, but still has her dual timelines and her little mystery to it, and her kind of, she's very good at the mysterious side of things. And so this follows our main characters, Carly, and she meets a young man. She was a physical therapist in the late 1960s, I think, mid-60s. And she ends up meeting a patient, and I'm trying to think of what his name was. Hunter. And decides that, you know what, Hunter is like the perfect person for my sister because Carly was married at the time. And so she introduces them, they fall in love, and it's fantastic. A few years go by, and Carly needs some medical attention that is not available during the 1970s, and Hunter reveals to her that he is able to time travel, and he's actually from the year of like 2013 or something like that. So and it goes from there. So think Time Traveler's Wife. It's fantastic. Seriously, 5 stars. It was not, sometimes I shy away from books like that because I feel like they're a little too like unbelievable or too sciencey, and it really wasn't. Diane did a really fantastic job making it believable. I could follow along with, I guess, the logic of how this time travel worked for her. I should show you this page. But it was really, really great. I flew through it, and I actually just picked up her new book. I picked it up from the library. I don't know where it is. Somewhere. But I think it's Big Lies in a Small Town that I want to read because now I'm on a Diane Chamberlain kick. The next, or not the next book, these aren't in order. Another book I picked up this month was Capital Gains by Chip Gaines. This was a book club pick for my book club at work. I'm giving this 4 stars for now. It's probably a 5-star read if I would have been in the right mindset, but I wasn't in a place to read a motivational type memoir at that moment. I wish it would have been different circumstances, and I think I would have gained even more from this. I truly enjoyed his story and how him and Joe met, and kind of how they started Magnolia Farms, and just, I guess, their backstory. I really, really, really loved. I love watching Fixer Upper. I'm a huge fan of these two. I think they're fantastic people. And it just, I could hear him like in my head as I read the story. It was wholeheartedly coming from him. So I'm going to keep this around. I'm going to open it up. There's a few places in here that I actually underlined and marked up and was kind of annotating in here that I feel like I can get more out of this if my head is in the right space. So if you're in the mood for a motivational book, I would definitely suggest this. Pick it up. Another book I finished, I was so close to finishing this one in April, but I didn't quite get there, but it was Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I can't say enough great things about this book. This is a sci-fi book. Again, I'm not a huge sci-fi reader, but this makes me want to pick it up more. I love how uniquely it's written in this like case file format. I did not get my hands on the audiobook of this, so I did not listen to it, but I've heard the audiobook version is phenomenal. It's a full cast. It is quite the experience, and so I'm hoping I can get the audiobook for Gemina, which is the next book, which I also have from the library. But I read this again over a weekend, which I know it looks like a chunky book, but you can definitely get through this. So this follows our main character, what's her name? Katie, I believe. And her mom are living on this other planet where they are, it's like a mining operation there. Well, they get attacked one day by a competitive mining type company. Is kind of coming to take them over. So they are refugees on some spaceships because they are able to flee, and then they're being chased by this other mining company that kind of came to like silence this planet. It is a whirlwind of an adventure, and again, very atmospheric, even though it's written in case file format, and it's crazy. It's fantastic. 5 stars. Highly recommend that one. All right, so I started my month out really well when I'm looking kind of in order. I read, of the first 5 books I read of this month, 4 of them were 5 stars, and then I kind of took this little downward trend from there. I did pick up Whiskey Sour by J.A. Conrath. Sarah talks about this series quite a bit on her channel. This follows a detective. Her name is Jack Daniels. So there's this play on this fun little drinks type thing here, and she drinks whiskey sours, and there's a recipe on how to make a whiskey sour. It's really great, but it follows her as she investigates the serial killer in her town. I did enjoy it. I think I gave it 3 stars. Again, it's a fine book. I'm going to continue with the series because I love her. I want to see her grow as a person. I love her little anecdotes. I really did enjoy it. It was short. I went through it really quick, but you know, it was fine. And then the other book I picked up was Next Year in Havana, or this is the last book that I picked up in the month. It was Next Year in Havana by Chanel Clayton. I buddy read this with Krista over at Books and Jams. And this one I struggle with because it felt like it was 2 different books put together. So the beginning of this, we're following a couple of different characters here. So there's dual timelines. We're in the late 1950s in Havana, Cuba, as Batista is starting to kind of lose power and Fidel Castro is kind of gaining power, and there's this struggle that's going on. And we follow our main character, Elisa, and her family, who are, her father owns like a sugar business, and they're very kind of high class. They support Batista, so it's an interesting time for them. And then we're present day, where we're following Marisol, who her grandmother was Elisa. And Marisol has been kind of tasked with taking Elisa's ashes back to Cuba to spread them there, because they did flee Cuba for the United States. She never got a chance to go back there, and she was very close with Marisol, so she kind of leaves this kind of dying wish with her. So the beginning of this book is very literary, if I can use that term. I guess my perfect example is you're in the midst of a conversation, and so maybe your character will ask a question, and then you have 3 paragraphs explaining either the atmosphere or some historical relevance to something, or what food they're eating, and then you finally get the answer to your question like the next page, which you kind of forget a question was even asked just because there's just so much detail there. But then you hit a point in the book where a lot of action starts happening and things start moving, and it just goes so fast. Like, you lose that literary part of it. So I felt a little disconnected with that. There is a love story in here that I just did not buy. I don't know if it was because of how it was written or what, but I didn't buy the insta love of these 2 characters. But I felt like I was in Cuba. I could vividly see and picture Havana. They talk a lot about food in this book. I was very hungry for anything Cuba, anything Cuban dishes, all of it. I liked the history of Cuba and how they talked about that time, because I don't know a lot about that. So there's parts of this book that I really enjoyed, and there is a sequel to this book where it follows Elisa's sister, Beatrice, I think her name is. And I am interested to see what her side of it is, and what kind of, how she dealt with having to flee Cuba and what happened there. So I think I'm going to continue on and read that piece of it, just hoping that it's this faster paced story that the second half of this book was compared to the first half. I hope that all makes sense. But I did like it. Just, it was fine. It was good. There's just parts of it that could have been a little better. But that's all of it. 10 books is a little insane. So we'll see what June has. I'm not sure. I'm not holding my breath. Probably not 10 again. Otherwise, leave a comment below. What have you been reading lately? Was there anything that I need to pick up and add to my list? Or was there anything you read that kind of fell flat? I kind of had a couple of those. Otherwise, comment, subscribe, like, all that fun stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye.